Even before the dust begins to settle at the Afya House, and with less than 2 weeks remaining for Kenyans to know if 5 billion shillings was lost at the Ministry of Health, NTV has learned that the ministry has planned to release payment of 800 million shillings to a supplier last weekend.
Okay, niko na mshangao lakini sijajuta.
The EACC stopped the payment, and correspondence between the anti-graft body and the ministry paint a picture of a tug of war, with the two institutions holding opposing views on payments to GE East Africa Limited for services and goods the ministry has maintained were delivered. Last Saturday, EACC wrote to the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Health, advising him to put on hold payments to all companies that the EACC is investigating over allegations of receiving payments from government fraudulently. EACC expressed concerns that it had information that GE East Africa Limited was about to be paid $8,061,941 million US, which is just over 800 million Kenya shillings, despite the company being under investigations. 6 days later, the CS Cleopa Milo wrote back to the EACC expressing his objection to the EACC's advice, saying, quote, the ministry had a valid contract with GE East Africa Services. Mailu, who chose to personally respond to the EACC letter despite the previous one having been addressed to the accounting officer at the ministry, made it clear his disagreement with EACC when he said, quote, putting on hold payments to the company will entitle GE East Africa Limited to late payment interest and also constitutes a breach of the contract which has great financial implications, he wrote. The EACC had on the 20th of October furnished the Ministry of Health with a list of companies that are under investigation for probably obtaining millions of shillings without proper procedures being followed. Among them is Estama Limited, which was paid 889 million shillings for supplying mobile clinics meant for the urban slum medical project. According to an internal audit at the ministry, Estama was paid despite not meeting the Kenya Revenue Authority's requirements on the use of electronic tax register receipts, tax compliance and PIN number. Sandils Investments, owned by Kathleen Kihanya, a blood relative of President Uhuru Kenyatta, received 41 million shillings for supplying emergency medical facilities to hospitals across the country.
Sandils International Limited submitted its application just like everybody else, and following a competitive bidding process, we were awarded a tender worth 41 million shillings.
Kathleen has since maintained that the tender was legal and followed a proper procedure. EACC Limited, a company associated with former Ethics and Anti-Corruption Chairman Philip Kinisu, was paid 150 million shillings of the purported diverted funds from the Ministry of Health.
Let's open the one we want.
As these fresh allegations come to the fore, there seems to be a disconnect in the parliamentary team that is investigating the loss of 5 billion shillings scam. Some members of the National Assembly's Health Committee walked out of the NYS holding yard in Mombasa after the chair of the committee asked them not to ask any questions from the persons in charge of the facility.
They are told not to communicate, not to ask questions, not to speak. I think that's very unfair. I would not allow anyone to gag me. The way forward is every one of us has an opinion. We are going to sit down as a committee. A lot of members of this committee are disgruntled. Not everyone is accepting what we are seeing.
The EACC has raised concerns over multiple agencies conducting similar investigations into corruption-related matters that it is also handling. Senate Speaker Ekwe Ethuro now wants the Ministry of Health to fully understand the aspect of devolving the health sector to the county level.
If I had my say, I would tell Ministry of Health, you are giving yourselves enough problems, which the Constitution solved for you. Take the money to the counties and have very little at the national level.
With these fresh allegations coming out of the Afya House, the Ministry of Health will find on its hands a tough challenge to to shake off corruption allegations and to prove to the nation that indeed hard-earned taxpayers' money has not gone to waste and ended up in individual pockets. Leila Mohammed, NTV, Nairobi.